Everyone who's working in the UAE has most likely experienced working with a multitude of other different nationalities. These interactions can either be very enriching or very nerve-wracking. And today I am here for our third episode of The Inner Shift, our podcast of the hybrid. And I'm going to discuss energy gainers and energy drainers in relation to multicultural workplaces with Michelle Al-Balushi, who is here with me today. She is a very, very respected and esteemed member of our leadership circle, and I'm so grateful that you're taking the time to be here with me today, Michelle. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sabine, for the wonderful opportunity to take part in this podcast. And I'm really excited about this topic that we're going to be covering today.
Beautiful. So, Michelle, I know that you are very experienced. Your background is with highly esteemed organizations. You have seen pretty much every single aspect of HR, and you have a very good variety of different experiences with also a multitude of different nationalities. So, if you don't mind, could you share a little bit about your experience working with different nationalities and how that affects your energy during the day?
Sure, sure. Well, I think before we go ahead and start about, my experience working with different nationality at the workplace, it's actually my upbringing. Because, I grew up into different culture in my own home. My mom is coming from an Asian background and my dad is Emirati. And being young, trying to understand both culture was quite confusing. It does affect your energy, your identity, your language. But thankfully, both of them are very stubborn and they made sure I respect both of these cultures that I think helped me through when I went to the organizations that I worked for. Um, and it's an eye opener, right? Working with a diverse group of people from different background, different religion, different ethnicity. At the beginning, it wasn't easy being someone who's young at their career, at the early stages, because you don't know their background, you don't know their culture. Even I realized later on the way how you speak or a certain word that you say might make them happy or offended, and you're not doing it intentionally, right? And then as you grow up the ladder within the organization, especially within the HR space, you get to understand that there are certain things, when people are not in the greatest mood, or they are having that negative energy, sometimes it drains you, especially, my fellow HR people would understand like employee relation cases or performance discussion. This is nerve wracking. But then, what is really important that we need to take a step back, re-energize our own energy, and try to identify ourselves. What is our state of mind? So that we're able to interact with people respectfully, but also put our intention to create that positive energy, or to, how would I put it? Um, Elevate your mood elevator into interacting with different individuals, in the organization.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And I love it that you started sharing with us what your upbringing was like. And I can relate to that very well. Well, now I'm from a purely German background, but I'm married to a wonderful man from Malaysia who has an Indian background. And so our kids are growing up with Malaysian, German, and Indian values in the UAE. So they have a multitude of different factors that really influence the way how they are communicating, influence the way how they are also understanding different cultures. And I am very, very happy that my kids get this opportunity to grow up understanding how different cultures can really be. Because I remember when I grew up in Germany, I didn't really have much interaction with many other cultures until I started studying, and then until I started to work back then in tech startups, building up their HR departments and HR processes, because we then started to hire people from, for example, from India, but also from Russia, from South America. And those cultures coming together was a firework of different reactions, different ways of how they wanted to be treated. And just like you said, it's always a matter of how do you feel respected in the communication. As you mentioned that one example, you are meaning to say something nice to someone, but they don't receive it that way. They receive it in a way that might even be offensive. And then you are standing there clueless, not knowing what you did wrong. But there must have been something that hurt the other person's feelings. So, if I may ask you, Michelle, what is your preferred way of being communicated with? Because I have a feeling that your and my way of being comfortable in communication might be slightly different given from where we're from.
True, true. Well, the way I like to be communicated with, the basics of human interaction, the facial expression has to be smiling, because that's how you're indicating or you're initiating the positivity of energy, not necessarily conversation, but the basic, interaction with a human being, especially here in the UAE, especially in the Arab culture. We always say do not go directly into the business context. You have to actually check on the other person by asking, how are you? And that is common courtesy, right? Just to make sure I feel you as a human. And then after that, get into the discussion about, the actual context of whatever it is. But I understand that sometimes people would just like to go directly into the situation based, let's say it's a stressful or there's a deadline that you need a quick answer, and that could happen, right? For myself, because I'm privileged that I learned, I did an effort to learn different cultures, different mindsets, and different languages and tones and expressions. I'm able to like, hey, okay, let's get into the business, right? Let's talk about this, let's do that, and then we can move on to, later on, if we felt like we have misrespected or disrespected someone or miscommunicated something, then that's another discussion. We have to take it offline and talk deeply how to resolve it for future discussion and future relationship building.
It's wonderful that you are picking exactly that example because coming from a German background, we are straight to the point all the time. I think Germans and also Dutch people are very famous for just going straight in and giving you the direct communication. When we have a meeting in business, we usually don't even ask, how are you doing or how was your weekend? We do that when we
Yes.
want to have a casual conversation, but we don't do that in the meeting. When we are in the meeting, we know we have, let's let it be 30 minutes and we're solely talking about business. If we are quick and we saved 5 minutes, that's great. Then we will end the meeting and we will part ways. We wouldn't even, sit those 5 remaining minutes and then talk about something
I
else.
want to share a really, really, it's not a funny story, but it's a learning story for people who are not aware about the culture that they're working with, right? Especially the country that they're part of. So there's one organization where we started hiring those young Emiratis into the workforce. And then one of them, after, spending about a month in the organization, they came up to me and they say, Mashal, can you transfer me to another department or can you speak to my manager? I don't think he likes me and this and that. I'm like, why? What's the reason? And the only reason was he never says hi or good morning to me, even when I say good morning. So I'm like, why do you think that way? And she's like, in our culture, we say good morning, we say salam alaikum, we respond to that, and then we move on, right? But he never does. So he gave me the impression that he doesn't want me in the team. And then when I went to the manager and I explained, like, there are some discomfort happening within his team members, especially with the young Emiratis, who is not familiar or not well oriented about the corporate culture and the differences and diversity of people they're working with, he said, oh, I'm sorry, because I can't hear properly. And number two, I'm a bit afraid engaging into conversation with Emirati women because the misconception he has that he needs to keep a borderline when it comes to communication with the female Emirati employees. So that's when I realized I'm like, oh, so there are some misconception or misinformation between the two, or unawareness about the culture differences, but no one had initiated discussion among each other to resolve it. So that's when I decided to say, you know what, let's do a culture awareness about the Emirati culture to our managers or expatriates, even at the onboarding stage. And then for the fresh graduates, Emirati, introduce them to the corporate culture and the diversity of what can they expect, where they're to avoid any miscommunication, and then continuously and consistently do some cultural immersion type of engagement as well as social initiative, so that people would understand one another in a much better way than just the business aspect of it.
And this is exactly why you are such a successful HR manager, Michelle, because you understand the needs of your people. This is exactly what it's about. It's about, first of all, just giving them the understanding that nobody made a mistake on purpose, that it's more about the unknown around the other culture. So
Yes,
if we take your example, right, the young Emirati woman had the best intentions by saying good morning. She wanted to create a nice atmosphere around her, an atmosphere of likability. And then the manager just refrained from that interaction because he wanted to respect her more than she needed to be respected in that particular moment. And as you also
correct.
said, it all starts with an awareness training, but this is what many companies don't understand. It doesn't end with one training. Just because I've attended a 2-day training on cultural awareness, it doesn't make me somebody who understands all the cultures around me, doesn't even understand one culture in depth. It's around repetition. It's about creating those additional moments where you can interact with one another and also get to know the nuances, not necessarily only the things that are being taught in a training, but it's really about those cultural nuances between the lines, those things that potentially don't even show up at work, but are more from, the personal space.
True, true.
So now, if I may ask you, Michelle, what would be a number one recommendation that you could give managers, let's say international managers who are new to the UAE? What would be the number one thing that could set them up for success managing an intercultural workforce here?
Perfect. And I love this topic a lot. My number one recommendation for international professionals entering a particular country, let's say, for example, the UAE, and they're not familiar about the actual culture, they should invest and initiate into understanding the culture, like attending Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum Cultural Center, where they actually offer an in-depth information about the UAE culture as a country and traditions, but also the UAE culture in the corporate business, right? That's an option. Number two, there are many books out there that people can actually read and understand how does the business run here and how is the culture in the corporate setup, because people has this misconception that Dubai is like New York. Everything is happening fast 24/7, etc. It's not. Even though that the operation is fast, there's a cultural element and social element into it. So for example, there's this book by I forgot the writer's name, but the title of the book, Don't They Know It's Friday?
I have that too. It's in my bookshelf. Yes.
Right? Because that speaks about different element of the culture, as well as the element of working with the nationals of that particular country. Um, but also there are also other book like the Dubai leadership style, where they would understand also how does the culture and the mindset play a role in how we want to run our business and how we want to interact with people. Yes, we do have the year of tolerance. Yes, we do have the year of community, but the UAE is making a lot of effort into understanding the international culture and integrating it into their day-to-day business operations, day-to-day life, and even the development that is happening in the country. But likewise, we also expect international professionals when they're entering the country is to understand the people, its culture. We are the minority, and it is also our duty as the citizen, like myself, if I'm in HR, I have to be the ambassador of my country and make this awareness discussion to the employees to understand it better in depth. I've worked with one of the real estate company, and when I introduced this cultural immersion session, I was quite surprised that people who's been here for 20 to 25 years, they don't even know the basic etiquette of an Emirati tradition. All they know is what they experienced, let's say, in UAE National Day, which is a corporate event. But they didn't take the effort to understand the depth and meaning about it. Why are we Arabs very hospitable? Why are we quite sensitive when it comes to the greetings? Why is there something called in the corporate business the Habibi business? Right? Why is it really important to have a relationship to get the things done before even talking about just business? Because it matters to the culture of, let's say, the UAE. We need to build that bond and trust to give you our opinion or to give you our approval for certain things. But we need to know who you are as a human and how you can help us for us to help you get and achieve the main goal that we have in the picture.
Those are such valuable tips. Thank you so much. I think that our audience will also really appreciate that.
Oh, and
And
one more thing.
yeah,
Sorry, Sabina, to cut you off, but one more thing. Please engage with the Emirati people. Do not, it's. I don't know what is the fear. I don't know what are the information given to the international people about the fear of engaging or interacting with the citizen. This is one thing that I do not agree, or the picture that is put on media or somewhere else, we don't know, right? So what one American person told me, they're actually being oriented, do not speak to them unless you are spoken to. And I was a bit shocked when that was said. It's like we are humans, we want to know you because you are a stranger on our land, so we want to know who you are so that we can learn from you. But likewise, you need to know us to learn from us. And we can just be like, let's say, if you go to Japan, if you go to China, or if you go to, let's say, Germany, you need to learn the language, you need to understand the culture for you to be successful in your business in these respective countries, right? And likewise, do the same effort when you come to the UAE or any of the Arab countries in the Middle East.
absolutely. I mean, we moved here with the family about 4 years ago by now, in 2021.
Yes.
And before that, we had lived for 8 years in Berlin, which was also not my husband's home country. So for him, everything in Germany was new. And I think he would also admit it's not his favorite culture. He never really got a real foot into the German culture. But in the end, he had me and he could rely on me to arrange everything for him, translate, and so on and so forth. But he was also very grateful when we decided to leave Germany. So we came to Dubai, and I had lived in multiple countries before, but I had never lived in the Middle East before. And one misconception that we have in Germany of the UAE is, for example, that Emiratis are very special because you, as you said, you are the minority in your country. You are extremely intelligent people, but you like to keep to yourself. And it would be very, very difficult for foreigners to get a connection, a meaningful connection to Emiratis. So that is one understanding that we had in Germany. So when I came to Dubai, I was very cautious because I wanted to do everything right. I didn't want to make any mistakes and I didn't want to disrespect anyone. So I kept my distance for that particular reason because I didn't want to disrespect anyone. Again, it's the good intention versus the way how it's being perceived. And that perception might not be the best one. So, in the end, the key in every interaction between cultures is always curiosity and ideally with humility. So, going into an interaction and being very honest by saying, I would love to be in contact with you, I just don't know how to approach you, is something that nobody would misunderstand. And it's also not seen as offensive, but it's very humble because I say, okay, I don't know. You know better. Please teach me how to. And then the door is open that everybody can teach each other. But I absolutely agree with what you said as well earlier, which is that when we live, we like us foreigners, when we live in Dubai, we are enjoying all the opportunities that you are giving to us. Dubai is so
Yes.
open and so welcoming and so wonderful than everything that we are able to do here. I'm living a much better life here than I ever was in
Mm.
Germany. And so the least I can do is really to respect the country, to learn about your customs, as you said, to have that book in my bookshelf. Don't they know it's Friday? Start learning Arabic, even though I have to admit it's pretty difficult and I haven't really
It
advanced
is,
much.
it is, it is.
But
But
I'm
you know,
trying to.
and that's great because that's an effort, People need to have the personal effort because at the end of the day, forget the business, it's all about human connection. I also want to share, like, people who are managing a very diverse team because if you're in the UAE, you're quite lucky. You can call yourself an international professional because you don't need to work, or you're a global professional because in the UAE or in Dubai specifically, you're working with 120, different types of nationalities who have different background. And there's one story I want to share where it was the first time for me, and it was later at the later stage of my career. I had a team, and she's from India, and she came up to me and she said, "By the way, I am Jewish." She practiced Judaism, and she said that if there's a flexibility for me to work on Fridays at home because they practice Shabbat, and to be honest with you, I was completely surprised. I was like, I didn't know India had Judaism. Right? And then I opened up the conversation with her. I said, to be honest with you, educate me about your religion, your practices, for me to understand how to manage our schedules and how to manage the meetings, because I don't know. I'm not aware about it, right? Because what I know is what we see in the media mostly and what we learn from our religion book. But other than that, I don't know the actual practices because we haven't interacted with people who practice this religion. And then, she was kind enough to share her story, her tradition, and what do they do and why does she need this time off? And I respected that, right? We had that mutual respect that I was able to apply flexible timing among my team, not just for her, but among my team, where they can, choose days in the week to work from home for their personal time, but also deliver the productivity that needs to be delivered. So that's one way that you need to be you cannot you need to have humility and be transparent if you don't know anything and ask the right question because people will be more receptive to give you the information to educate you to make you more aware.
Definitely. And if we bring this back to the concept of energy and how social moments can either give us fresh energy or drain our energy, when we take this wonderful example that you've just shared with us, I can only imagine how energetic your Indian team member was when you actually approached her and you said, in all honesty, I don't know much. Can you please teach me? And she must have felt so appreciated, recognized, and also, yeah, just really energetic because she now felt, okay, I don't have to hide my identity. I don't have to hide away. And I can approach my manager, and she takes me for who I am. And she is even willing to make changes in the department just to accommodate the specific needs that I have for my religion. And if you then translate that to the energy in the entire team, I'm quite sure that all other team members will have seen that interaction and they will have thought for themselves, what a wonderful, appreciative environment I am working in. And that increases the sense of belonging. And belonging is definitely that kind of social interaction that we are all looking for. And that is something that gives us new energy, as opposed to feeling that you have to hide, that you cannot show who you really are, that you have to, for example, be at work instead of having the opportunity to get to your religious rituals, for example. All of those things are also a massive drain for your motivation to come back to work because you don't feel your whole self when you're at
Yes.
work.
True, true. And see, when it comes to energy, right? People talk about energy. There's a lot of intensive leadership program that is focusing on mindfulness. We need to just remember that we are human. We need to tap into our emotions because energy, what makes us operate, our emotion makes us operate. think, do, interact, right? It's not the machines, it's not AI, it's basic human interaction. And that sense of inclusivity, that sense of belonging, this is the role of a leader who needs to shift their mindset, just not just focusing about the bottom line, but if you want to be a successful leader, you need to understand what is the capability of my team, not just on the competencies that they have to deliver the job, but also understand their personal background and needs so that you can accommodate them and you can develop them and give them that psychology safety for them to perform. In Dubai, mashallah, we work 40 to 48 hours or even more per week, where they spend more time at work than at home, right? So we need to cultivate the culture and making sure that we do an energy sense check among our team to know that, okay, are we still good into delivering what we have put as a goal or towards our vision, or do I have to step in to check in on the member and help them up, whether it's something that they're facing as a challenge, and then guide them towards getting better, develop them, or just coaching them. And this is where energy comes from. So energy is not about positive or negative. Sometimes some negative energy can be good. I'm not saying it's bad. Sometimes it could be good, because that's how we generate and identify, hey, I'm still human, I have my emotions, I'm okay, I'm normal. Right? But we always need to take that step back. We as leaders, we as human beings, as individuals, we need to just step back, do a check in, understand our mood elevator to understand how to operate with people, not just with machines or computers.
Absolutely. Michelle, what a fantastic idea to bring in the energy sense check. I absolutely love that. And I think this is definitely something that every manager, and not just manager, everyone who is active in a workspace should include into their daily doing. And probably not just once. Yes, when we get up once, what is my energy today like? What do I feel like? What do I need today to fuel my energy? But then also after specific events during the day or before a very important meeting. I have spoken to so many managers who, for example, feel anxious before they go into a meeting, and that anxiety drains their energy, and they feel so small that they wouldn't be able to perform the way that they wanted to in that meeting. But just as you said, checking in with oneself, checking in with your emotions, with your energy before you're stepping into an important meeting can really be a game changer. When you
Yes.
listen to yourself and you are able to pick something that helps you get into a better emotion, get into a better energy, your entire performance can shift, not just in
True.
that one meeting, but during the entire day. Thank you so much for bringing that in.
No problem. And to be honest, there's also one thing that for me, for example, I'm not ashamed. Like I tell my, whoever I'm managing or whoever I'm working with, when I don't feel at the best of my energy, if I don't feel that I'm okay, I tell them that I do not feel at my best. Can we just, postpone the meeting or meet later, because I want to give my 100% focus on you when I'm at my best energy. And that's okay. Someone actually told me, how can you say that to people? Don't you think people might perceive something that you're too emotional or you're too sentimental? In my head, I'm like, no, I'm just being transparent, because this is how people would know how to operate with me. When I'm not in a good mood, it's better not to go into action or pretend that you're okay, but then you fail at the end where you feel more miserable. It's better to let everyone know I'm not feeling at my best today. Forgive me if I'm going to be a bit, you know, low in energy, or you might not see me engaging a lot, or I'm not going to be performing at my best, right? So that people understand that you're going through something and this is what I can expect from you in today's meeting, right? So communication is key, and communicating how you feel and what's your energy is also essential so that the other person can also understand how to work with you or how to deal with you. And to be honest, that gives you or that's how you build mutual respect that is going to be long lasting.
Absolutely. I think to a certain extent, Michelle, what you were just talking about is also this vulnerability. And as you said earlier on, psychological safety is critical to a functioning workspace, and especially leaders being seen as vulnerable are a very important ingredient to that psychological safety. And I could continue to talk to you about this for 2 hours or probably even more because there is so much wisdom in everything that you say. But we have reached the end of this episode today. And if I may just summarize, and then I'll hand back to you for one last time. What we've discussed today is that most important for working in intercultural workspaces and creating an energy that everybody can flourish in is curiosity, not just about the people you're interacting with, but also curiosity about yourself. It's about getting to know each other, going in with humility and admitting that we don't know everything, but that there is so much we can learn from each other. And at the same time, to go into introspection and to understand for oneself, how am I doing today? And will I actually be able to perform the way that I want to perform? And if I'm not, how can I create that environment that will help me do as good as I can today? Thank you so much, Michelle, for being here. I really appreciated speaking to you today.
Thank you so much, Sabine, and thank you for opening this topic. I really hope we can have another session where we can deep dive into the emotional intelligence aspect, because energy is one thing, but then we have other stuff that we can actually cover. And I really want to send a message to everyone who's listening to this podcast. It is okay sometimes to be at the balcony where everyone is are on the dance floor, because that's the time, that's your opportunity to check in and reflect and try to realign your energy, and then join the crowd on the dance floor to spread that energy that hopefully be a learning point for others to follow.
What a wonderful closing. Thank you so much, Michelle. And thank you for
Thank you,
everyone who
Sabine.
joined us.
Thank you. Bye bye.